throw this in here.
In which case everybody here should have had
Israel.
as well.
For those of you who have not translation devices, for protocol I actually need to do this in Spanish. Para aquellos que no tengan traducción. Only in American. Marilyn, dear organizer, can I start? Muy buenos días, tengan todos. Bienvenidos a esta la primera sesión principal del Foro de Gobernanza de Internet. Quiero agradecerles a todos su presencia y también a la mesa por su participación. Un especial agradecimiento a los organizadores de la sesión, Marilyn Cade, Igor St. Anna Resent y Ole Segun Olegville, participantes y colaboradores del grupo de asesores de múltiples partes interesadas de la Organización de Naciones Unidas. Voy a presentar también a los comoderadores, el embajador Benedicto Fonseca, de Brasil, Karen McCabe, directora senior de Políticas de Tecnología y Asuntos Internacionales del Instituto de Ingeniería Eléctrica y Electrónica. Karen. Los invitados especiales, Lenny Montiel, subsecretario general para el Desarrollo Económico del Departamento de Asuntos Económicos y Sociales de Naciones Unidas, Lynn Sanamur, amiga y colega en el MAC, la presidenta del Grupo de Asesores de Múltiples Partes Interesadas, también el embajador Daniel Sepúlveda. Amigos, colegas. Esta sesión también se está transmitiendo en vivo vía Internet y también tenemos colaboración vía Webex para aquellos que puedan participar en línea. La sesión se enfoca en el rol de transformador y el rol de evaluar el rol del Internet y la gobernanza de Internet hacia apoyar e incentivar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible que marca la Agenda 2030 de Naciones Unidas. En eso se enfocarán las preguntas de los diferentes grupos. Espero que estén ubicados en sus grupos correctos. Si no, con la organizadora Marilyn también pueden consultarlo. México ha tomado un rol cada vez más relevante. Obviamente el tema nacional en el país se está fortaleciendo, el debate se está fortaleciendo. Los diferentes grupos del ecosistema nos estamos acercando. El debate es cálido y es algo que no se tenía hace 2 o 3 años. Hemos ido avanzando en la conversación con los diferentes grupos de sociedad civil, del sector técnico, académico y la industria en temas de gobernanza de Internet. Tuvimos ya un foro regional de gobernanza. También apoyamos, obviamente, al proceso de ILAC dentro del marco de CEPAL. Y ahora, obviamente, expresamos el interés desde hace 3 años de ser sede del Foro de Gobernanza de Internet y apoyamos la renovación del mandato en diciembre del año pasado. Con esto realmente el interés es marcar el fortalecimiento no solo del entorno local, sino también el interés de largo plazo de apoyar un entorno de múltiples partes interesadas. Con esto les doy la bienvenida y también le cedo la palabra al embajador Benedicto Fonseca, quien les dará unos mensajes. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Good morning to all of you. I'm very pleased and honored to serve as the co-moderator for this session. Brazil is a firm supporter and enthusiastic supporter of actions that will improve Internet governance ecosystem. And as you know, we are also firmly attached to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have been very active, and we certainly look into total implementation of the technology facilitation mechanism in that regard. So it is a great pleasure to see that in this session the synergies between both processes will be investigated. We think this is a timely and important task. So as we walk through the SDGs through the perspective of how this relates to Internet governance and can work in a mutually reinforcing ways, I wish to convey to the meeting and wish all of us a very productive session. And I will turn to my co-moderator to provide some explanation on how this session will unfold. And just for the sake of transcription, I just want to clarify the spelling of my name is with an O at the end, Benedicto, just for the sake for the transcription. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen McCabe. I'm with the IEEE, and it is a great pleasure and an honor to be a co-moderator of this session. As a little bit background, IEEE is a large professional association that has over 42 technical communities underneath it, which is really the strength of the organization. But more so, our mission is to advance technology for the benefit of humanity. And with that, the Sustainable Development Goals and our progress toward them are so aligned with that mission. And again, for that reason, it is such a pleasure and an honor to be here today and to partake in this significant session that we're having. This is a co-moderated open consultation session, and it's to gain input on assessing the role of Internet governance in the Sustainable Development Goals. So I have the pleasure of trying to explain how this all is going to work and flow of this session. So a reminder, and I know it was mentioned previously, that this session is being live streamed and videotaped, and it's being recorded, as I noted, and we do have remote participants, and we have a remote moderator that will be making sure that if they have any questions or comments that can come our way. We're going to initiate the session with first a setting of the scene to provide a variety of perspectives on the topic, where each speaker will have about 4 to 5 minutes to provide those perspectives. Then we're going to move into the open consultation, or the interactive segment, where we will have, if you will, 3 sub-segments under that to address the Sustainable Development Goals specifically. So one sub-segment, will be on SDG 1 through 8. The second one will be on SDG 9 through 15, and the last one on, 9 through 16, and the last segment on Sustainable Development Goal 17, I'm having number problems today. So we're going to organize the open consultation segment by stakeholder community group. And I know when you were entering the room, our volunteers from IGF were organizing you to sit in some respective areas. So On this side, over here, raise my hand over here to my right, my left, your right, is the business community. Here we are sharing civil society and academia, and to my right, your left, is the technical community, government and IGO. So we're going to ask each speaker to keep your intervention to about 3 minutes. We want to make sure that all people who have comments have an opportunity to do such, and we're going to be rotating them through business, civil society, academia, government, IGO, and technical community, and then we'll round robin them again. As you can see, this is a little bit of a challenging venue for this type of activity, so we, thanks to the IGF volunteers, we'll be having microphones. And when we get to each section, we'll be asking you to sort of raise your hand if you want to make an intervention, and then the microphone will come to you, and then you'll have an opportunity to do that. Also, as just another reminder, I can't stress this enough, it is being videotaped, and we do ask also that you make sure you announce your name and your affiliation so we can capture that as well. So with that, I think we're going to launch into the setting of the scene from the different perspectives. Oh, pardon me. I missed a critical piece. We have comments. Sorry, the ambassador.
No, just before we turn to the setting the scene segment, I'd like to offer the floor to His Excellency Lenny Montiel, Assistant United Nations Secretary General for Economic Development. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be with you at this first main session of the Internet Governance Forum 2016. The 11th IGF on enabling inclusive and sustainable growth is the first since its 20-year mandate renewal. And as you can imagine, as UN official representing the Secretary General here in Mexico, I cannot think of a better topic to kick off the discussion than the topic of this session, assessing the role of Internet governance in the SDGs. In September, we just celebrated the first anniversary of the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The agenda is ambitious. It aims to end poverty in all forms and everywhere. Many targets aim for universal access. They bring together agendas that have been thus far addressed only on different tracks, from sustainable development to climate change, peaceful societies and institutions, and now they are all together under one single roof. The implementation of the 2030 Agenda, with its 17 goals and 169 targets, began in January this year. Our challenge now is to turn the goals and targets into real and lasting change in people's lives. Our motto now is leaving no one behind. Internet and ICTs are one of the reasons we can be optimistic that we can reach the bold transformations required by the SDGs. Target 9.C of the SDGs calls for significantly increasing access to ICT and providing universal and affordable access to the Internet in least developed countries by 2020. The Internet can help ensure equitable and effective public services for all, particularly for the poorest and most vulnerable. ICTs and Internet bring breakthrough advances for health or education. They can enhance public accountability. They can promote participation for more inclusive societies. They can promote policy integration. While we have made remarkable progress in the past 10 years in spreading the benefits of ICTs, disparities remain both among countries and among people. Lack of access to technology, poverty, and inequality prevent people from fully taking advantage of the potential of Internet. Yesterday, only I mentioned that today, at the end of 2016, a total of 53% of world's population, and that is 3.9 billion women and men, don't have access to the Internet, and this is worldwide. In the 48 least developed countries, 12% of world population, only around 1 in 7 people will be online by the end of this year. In the majority of the world's poorest countries, broadband remains unaffordable. the global internet user gender gap is even increasing. Many people cannot use the internet because they lack the necessary skill or there is insufficient content in their native language. There are many barriers to access, including unreliable power supplies or sparse network coverage, but also costs. Further barriers exist in digital literacy, local content, and capacity building. To overcome these challenges, as stated in the WISES plus 10 outcome document, we should regularly identify and promote specific, detailed actions to support the enabling environment for Internet. We need to ask ourselves, for example, what would be the critical next steps all stakeholders should take if we are to reach the target of universal access to the Internet and to close digital divides? We need to think of bold new steps to rally all actors to put the Internet in the service of the poor, women, disabled people, indigenous populations. There is much we can achieve if the best brains of the ICT industry and society work on making affordable Internet access possible. This year's overarching theme for the annual meeting invites us to reflect on these efforts. Dear all, in closing, I would like to thank the MAT organizers of this session and all the colleagues who contributed to its extensive preparation. Last but not least, I would like to stress the United Nations continues committed to support the work of the IGF. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, now we will move into our setting the scene to provide, to hear different perspectives from our esteemed speakers. And with that, I would like to introduce Ms. Megan Smith, Principal Advisor in DG Communications Network, Content and Technology of the European Commission. Megan, please.
Thank you, Karen. It's always a pleasure to be in Mexico, but particularly because this is the first IGF of the new mandate, so I'm very pleased to be here. I will try to speak very briefly just about some of the initiatives that we're taking in Europe and how those have implications for the rest of the world and how Internet governance can be brought into that context. So in Europe, we have a huge activity going on to try to improve and establish a digital single market. This digital single market addresses many of the goals and of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are trying to use information and communication technologies and the Internet-based innovation and research to make sure that those goals are addressed in an efficient, sustainable, and ecologically friendly way. And of course, to make sure that ethical and social considerations are taken into consideration. So why does the digital single market make any sense to any of you? Why should any of you be interested? Because it is to make Europe a better trading partner, a better global citizen, and to have better access and exchanges with the whole world. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second is that Europe, and the European Union in particular, is the primary aid donor in the world. And we have been, over the last few years, trying to integrate digital technologies into our development assistance program. And just in the last few weeks, we have now even clearer commitments from our Council of Ministers and from a communication by the European Commission on how to achieve integration of digital technologies in our development assistance program. So when Europe provides development assistance, it works very closely with the recipient countries. A program is developed, and those programs, of course, are bottom-up, driven by the recipients, but we want to make sure that the digital technology elements of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals are integrated into those activities as well. And of course, the Sustainable Development Goals are not just about developing countries. They are the whole world's obligation, and we all are committed to achieving them. And we have to make sure that all our partners and all stakeholders work together to do this. So the model of Internet governance is a very good one that we can use to extend and expand to the application of the Sustainable Development Goals. The other aspect I wanted to mention, of course, is that in this context and in ensuring that we have that we achieve these goals, we have to make sure that an enabling environment is available, not just in developing countries, but throughout the world. And here we can also work very actively together. Since the internet underpins all these digital technologies, we have to make sure that it remains robust, secure, stable, and that we all work together to ensure that the benefits that we have all seen and achieved over the last 20 years of the existence of the internet continue into the future. So one aspect I would like to suggest as an idea is perhaps the UN, along with all of us in this room and beyond, could help to map even better the way in which internet governance, multi-stakeholder approaches could be used to help us all to attain the Sustainable Development Goals. This is something where we could all work together to identify where we need to do a bit more, where there are lacuna, where there are overlaps potentially, which will make our work even more efficient and useful. So I'll stop there in the interest of time. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure now to introduce my friend and colleague, Ambassador Daniel Sepúlveda, Deputy Assistant Secretary from the Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs from the U.S. State Department. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I want to thank you, I want to thank Victor, and I want to thank the other co-moderators. As you all know, the United States believes that the internet and its multi-stakeholder model of governance are natural partners for the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we believe that because the fulfillment of those goals will have to lean heavily on public-private partnerships. It will need to welcome the commitments and expertise of non-governmental stakeholders, and it will need to encourage the participation of all people, including those who are most impacted by the decisions we take as a whole. Really, this is the only way to ensure that the Sustainable Development Goals are reachable. No single sector will be able to achieve them alone. And just as the 2030 Agenda is moving from commitments to action, so should our community, the internet community, ensure that we remain committed to action, not just international agreements and discussion. Reaffirmation of the multi-stakeholder model by the UN General Assembly at the WSIS Plus 10 last year and the IANA stewardship transition this year were, to our minds, historic achievements. But we must now ensure that those and the many other internet government processes meet the promise of transparency and accountability, where more stakeholders from the developing world have a seat at the table, where we focus more on advancing a global internet and closing the digital divides that remain within countries and between countries, including the gender divide, and where we as a community remain unwavering in our commitment to the protection of human rights. We appreciate the work within the MAG and by the community this year to ensure that the IGF lives up to this standard, and it is essential that the work continues over the coming decade. The multi-stakeholder model of internet governance has facilitated significant accomplishments over the past decade, and we should appreciate these, by promoting the expansion of access to the internet and the digital tools for the development that they contain. This access and these tools directly support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. According to the Global E-Sustainability Initiative's summary report on system transformation, for the first goal of ending poverty, connectivity improvements through mobile device access increases access to opportunities to break out of poverty and improve economic participation, decreasing the number of people living on less than $1.25 a day by 1/3. As to the second goal, zero hunger, smart agriculture using satellite monitoring networked sensors and internet-enabled automation has the potential to increase crop yields, and biosensors will make healthcare more accessible and affordable, giving an additional 1.6 billion people access to healthcare by 2030. Almost all of the goals have examples like these where you can walk through and point out specifically and using specific statistics on how connectivity and the tools that they provide will help us reach those goals. The digital divide persists, as I said earlier, between and within countries across many categories, including between the wealthy and those lacking resources, along gender lines, and between urban and rural communities. We know that the ICTs are a key enablers to closing the gap to achieve economic growth, gender balance, and social inclusion, and are deeply committed to meeting those goals. The United States is prepared to do its part to join with others to increase access to ICTs and broadband connectivity across the world, because increasing that access will affect the fulfillment of the 17 SDGs. We believe that connecting people to the global network and ensuring that they have the skills and the freedom to use that connectivity productively is our highest mission. We also cannot afford to deny that the challenge is disproportionately real for women and disenfranchised communities. Governments will not solve these challenges alone, nor will we solve them by centralizing direction and control. We live in an age where the key ingredients for innovation and growth are cooperation and collaboration. Together we can fulfill these goals, and this community has a unique role and a unique opportunity to help fulfill those goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And next, I'd like to please introduce Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Chief Strategic Planning and Membership Development, International Telecommunications Union. Doreen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Muy buenos días a todos. The 17 goals of the 2030 Agenda provide 17 challenges for the global community, but it also provides 17 tremendous opportunities, 17 opportunities to succeed by channeling the enabling transformational power of ICTs. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development clearly recognizes that global connectivity holds great potential for human progress. But that catalytic power of ICTs for the achievement of each of these goals will not be fulfilled until we have universal and affordable access to ICTs and the Internet. As the UN Secretary General, Special Advisor on SDGs, said to the ITU Council, if we fail to address the digital divide, the 2030 Agenda will not succeed. Every one of the 17 goals provides a compelling reason to achieve universal affordable connectivity, and there is a clear tactical roadmap within the SDG agenda that both compels us to do so and which is our guiding way. If we can create effective multi-stakeholder partnerships, as we are called to do so in Goal 17, we will succeed in achieving all of the specific ICT targets which have been agreed to by both the developed and the developing world. We need to especially focus on Goal 9C, universal and affordable access to the Internet for least developed countries by 2020, not 2030, but by 2020. While this goal may be aspirational, it is not impossible, given the right mix of human will, strategic multi-stakeholder partnerships, and technological innovation. I wanted to tell you this morning 17 real stories on how connectivity is enabling the SDGs, but as I don't have enough time, I will limit myself to just a few. Goal 1, ending poverty. Adama lives in Mali, and thanks to his 2G phone, he is now financially included. He also receives regular SMS messages from the Agricultural Information Service, and he's able to stay up to date on the latest market data and knows the best time to harvest and sell his crops. Goal 2, zero hunger. Laboni is just one of thousands of smarter farmers in Bangladesh. When she calls 16123, a free call from any operator in Bangladesh, Laboni gets access to real-time agricultural information and knowledge, helping her to farm smarter and increase productivity on her small holding. Goal 3, health and well-being. Naki's 2G phone is helping her take care of her unborn child. Mobile phones are ensuring that Naki and thousands of pregnant women all over Ghana get health care for themselves and for their new babies. And that's something that we heard yesterday from Alejandra when she presented the Prospera Digital, which is an initiative here in Mexico helping pregnant women and new mothers. Goal 4, education. Aisha goes to a junior school in Nigeria, and thanks to the school's new e-learning classroom, which is fully equipped with a laptop, internet modem, projector, and projector screen, she and her classmates get access to quality education resources from around the world. And today, as we know, there are 60 million children of primary school age that are not attending school, and we know that there's 26 million teachers that are needed out there, and we believe that ICTs can fill that gap. Goal 5, gender, and this is my last story. Angelica used to be a street sweeper, and now she's a web entrepreneur. Angelica is just one of more than 1 million previously unskilled women who have benefited from the ITU and telecenter.org's digital literacy campaign. Specifically on Goal 5 at the ITU, we're very happy to see that there's hundreds of initiatives out there that are focusing on ensuring equal participation of women and girls in digital technologies. But the gap's still there, and we need to do more, and that's why the ITU, together with UN Women, have launched a multi-stakeholder initiative called Equals, which is a global partnership for bridging the digital gender divide, and we invite you to join us on Friday morning for our open session. As Vince Cerf noted yesterday, we have unfinished business to do, unfinished business to connect the unconnected, and we need to join forces to get the business done. I will close by reiterating a message that David Nabarro conveyed to the 2016 Council session of the ITU. The new development agenda is universal, indivisible, and must leave no one behind. And we must address the digital divide, or we will not succeed. We don't have a plan B for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam, for your comments. I will now turn to Mr. Patrick Ho Chi-ping, Deputy Chair and Secretary General of the China Energy Fund Committee. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, the rapid development of ICT in recent decades has ushered us into the fourth industrial revolution. Our lives and our societies are increasingly interwoven by a single man-made system, the Internet. This new system has brought about much good, but it has also presented new challenges. As with revolutions past, we are now seeing rising tension between those advancing the new technology and those being left behind by it. Today, a growing digital divide is exacerbating inequality, stifling dialogue, and leading to discord. More than half of the world's population, 3.9 billion people, either lacked regular access to the Internet or have none at all. The tragedy of this situation is that digital connection offers a distinct opportunity to those it has left behind. Where basic needs are met, access to the Internet can expand horizons, providing a means by which people can lift themselves out of poverty. In recognition of all these facts, the world's nations set under SDG 9 a target of providing least developed countries with universal and affordable access to the Internet by 2020. The construction and expansion of Internet infrastructure, including fiber optic trunk lines, core routers, and DNS route servers, is critical to achieving this target. Current estimates show that the world will need at least $10 trillion in investment for ICT infrastructure by 2030. In the meantime, however, we see chronic underinvestment in such infrastructure, with gaps of hundreds of billions of dollars. Until we are able to secure increased commitment to expanding internet infrastructure, our efforts to bridge the divide will at least be slow and at worst largely stuck in mud. Fortunately, there are promising signs with some countries rising to the challenge. Infrastructure development, including internet infrastructure, is one of the key elements of China's Belt and Road Initiative, an initiative whose core concept is to provide regional connectivity and bridge all kinds of divides. Indeed, China is already working hard to secure the investment and partnership necessary for the success of its digital Silk Roads. No nation, organization, or section of civil society can, however, succeed alone in bridging the divide. Everyone must contribute. More should participate in the Belt and Road or emulate its model of cross-border development and generally work to strengthen investment in internet infrastructure. We should all renew our call for infrastructure development for the internet, making known the advantage of doing so: jobs and economic opportunities, improved access to education and services, and social empowerment, all the things that can be unleashed by having more people online. Lastly, we should always remember that new technologies, however remarkable they might seem, are fundamentally just tools made by people for people. Innovation and technology must put people first. Only in this way can they truly propel us towards more sustainable growth and inclusive development. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to introduce David Suter, Managing Director, ICT Development Associates. David, please.
Thank you very much. I'd perhaps like to take a slightly different starting point from other members of the panel, but also pick up on the last point that was made by my previous speaker, which is putting people first, not technology. And I'll try to make 6 points in my 4 to 5 minutes, derived from 25 years of trying to work at the interface between development and the information society and to bring these two things together. They're both really important areas, really important for the future, but there are also real challenges in bringing them together. So my first point, I think we have to acknowledge that there's been a paradigm gap between the internet and sustainable development. You can see this, I think, in the very limited presence of the internet in the outcome document from the 2012 Earth Summit and the relatively slight emphasis that it gains in the Sustainable Development Agenda. The fact is, and I know this from working in development fields, many development practitioners are simply not persuaded yet that the internet is as important for development as many of us here think it is. And that's been the case for 10, 15, 20 years. I think we need to recognize it more. It's a challenge we need to address. So our starting point in addressing it, and this is my second point, picking up on what the last speaker said, I think should be the human development problems that are fundamental to sustainable development, which are the problems identified in the goals themselves, which were on the screen a moment ago. Those human development problems are rooted in structural issues of economic resources and economic capacity, of poverty and inequality, of political and economic power structures. And the internet can and will contribute substantially towards addressing them. But it can't resolve them on its own. It's only a part of the SDG story. I think that if we here in the internet community are going to contribute as substantially as we should, we need a much deeper understanding of the challenges of development and why they've proved so intractable. And particularly, we need to understand why least developed countries seem to be falling adrift in both development and ICT indicators at present. So my third point is that this is not a static question. The SDGs are set for the next 15 years, but the context within which they will be implemented will change politically, economically, socially, culturally, environmentally over that period of time. And the technologies we'll be talking about here in 15 years' time will be very, very different from those we're talking about today. So our approach to this, I think, needs to emphasize that the information society is a process of change, and we need to consider the adaptiveness of societies to our technologies. Fourth, and this is my largest point, there are three main areas, I think, where ICTs and the internet are going to be significant for sustainable development. So the first of these which I think is most important, but which tends to be emphasized less. It concerns the underlying changes which are happening in economies, societies, and cultures as a result of the internet. Systemic changes in how societies and economies work and how things are done by governments, businesses, and citizens. These are very important today. They're growing in importance. They'll have a profound effect over the next 15 years. The second areas are projects and programs which make use of the internet to support development goals, where experience is mixed. Evidence suggests that those that build on established development practice are most likely to be successful here. And the third is about the monitoring and measurement of development outcomes, where there are high hopes for big data, but also challenges in ensuring that big data analysis doesn't overemphasize the impact on those who generate most data rather than those who are in most need. Of the three areas, as I say, I think it's the systemic impacts that are likely to be most important. So fifth, I think we need to learn more from what's been happening. This year's World Development Report from the World Bank is the most comprehensive assessment we have of digital dividends, the bank's phrase. It's very positive about the role of the internet in facilitating development, but it points out two crucial things. Those who have money, resources, and capabilities are better placed to gain from the internet than those who don't. And so it feels that, the bank feels that, in many countries the internet has disproportionately benefited elites to date. And it sets out clearly that the potential of ICT for D has not been realized over the past decade at the pace that had been hoped. And I think we need to understand more. We need more analysis of why that is so. So finally, my last point, I think the best way for us to start addressing this in going forward from here is to listen more to those who work in development. So here I have a suggestion. If we repeat this session next year, as well as a panel of experts on the internet, I suggest we have a panel of development practitioners, people whose expertise lies in poverty reduction, gender equity, agriculture, enterprise development, health and education, and ask them to help us respond to the development challenges which they identify as their priorities. Thanks.
Thank you, David. So that concludes our setting the scene segment of this session. And with that, I am going to ask our speakers to please take their seats in their respective stakeholder community groups, if you will. And I know, David, you're staying up here with us on the panel because you have the wonderful challenge to sum it all up at the end for us. So with that, I'll ask our speakers to please take their seats, and then we'll enter into our open consultation town hall style segment. And while they're doing that, I will remind us again of how this is all going to work for us. So we have 4 stakeholder communities, business community over here, to my your right. In center is a combination of civil society and academia, and government and IGOs, and over on this side is our technical community. You will see IGF volunteers with signs and pink shirts helping us out to ensure that that's where the respective stakeholder communities are sitting. As I noted, we will be doing 3 rounds, if you will, based on the groupings of the Sustainable Development Goals, with Group 1 or Segment 1 being Sustainable Development Goals 1 through 8. And if you are looking to make an intervention, we ask that it's about 3 minutes. We want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak. Please indicate if you are interested in making a comment to raise your hand, and our volunteers will get a microphone to you so that you can do that. And we also please ask if you can introduce yourself and your affiliation. That would also be helpful. And how we'll work this is Ambassador Fonseca and myself will be more moderating, more facilitating each of those segments, just to make sure people are sort of staying on time. Okay, so we are going to start with the business community, and then as I noted earlier, we'll be rotating. So we'll be the business community, civil society and academia, government and IGOs, and technical community, and then we'll do a round robin. So with that, we would please like to entertain comments from the business community. And if you're interested, raise your hand and a microphone will be provided to you. Thank you. I see hands over here. Or you can stand. That might be a little bit easier for our volunteers to see as well. We are asked that we don't stand in the aisles, though, for safety reasons.
Thank you. Distinguished moderator, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jameson Olufuye. I'm the chair of the concerned private sector group in Africa called AFICTA. We are made up of companies and ICT associations from 27 countries in Africa. We are actively engaged in the IG discussions. Well, I want to thank the panelists for the good pace setting they have done, and it has given me more interest in contributing at this hour. Well, first and foremost, if we're looking at how IG will contribute to sustainable development goals, we need to look at the fundamental principles behind IG, which some of the panelists talked about. Multi-stakeholder partnership is very, very key, especially in developing countries. Last 2 months, we had this summit in Namibia, and the government of Namibia, through the ICT minister, did say that there is urgent need for policies, guidelines to be reviewed so that they can better address the SDG issues. I think this is a fundamental point that all over the world we need to do a review of our policy guidelines, review our regulatory frameworks, review all the policies that we have so that we can better address the issue of poverty, the issue of hunger in the land. And also, last Friday, based on this multi-stakeholder partnership, we had a forum in Abuja, wherein we underscored the need even for more affordability of internet access. The government wanted to increase the price of data access, but because of awareness among all stakeholders, there was a lot of response to that, that no, you cannot think of reducing poverty and hunger when you want to increase the cost of access. So government listened, and the rate is at it is. So we need to engage more, and the government too has a role to play, because back in Africa, if the government doesn't move, nothing really moves. So we appreciate a number of our government, they are quite responsive, but in private sector in Africa, we're also ready to engage. So sustainable development goal is key for the information society of WSIS. So that is the point I would like to make at this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take another one from business or remove?
Yes. So now we would like to take a comment from civil society and academia. We're going to rotate, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with LaborNet APC in San Francisco. And I think this forum is very important for having a debate and discussion about the effect of the internet and the future of the internet. We are concerned about the situation of the marginalization of labor, and particularly deregulation disrupting the economy. In particular, in the case of Uber and others, workers are being marginalized, and you have the gig economy. And this has affected workers who have regular, stable jobs in the United States and around the world. And we think this has to be addressed because it is causing a very bad effect for workers in the United States and other countries. In even Uber and the traffic situation in San Francisco, although I know a lot of people go to San Francisco, but you have thousands, 20, 30,000 drivers in San Francisco who are part-time workers, basically, trying to survive on Uber, and it's having a delirious effect. The other aspect that we want to raise is the issue of privatization of the internet and Facebook. We have a petition around how Facebook is using its position to say that they're going to provide free internet, internet.org. They've taken over the domain of org, internet.org, and they're using it to basically market their products around the world. We think this is a serious threat of a privatization of the internet, and we are in favor of a free public internet for working people and poor people all over the world. We don't believe that Facebook is interested in doing that. They have a marketing scheme to do that. Lastly, I do want to issue some solidarity. There was an encampment in Guadalajara of the teachers who are fighting privatization and the use of the internet in the schools where computers are replacing teachers. And their encampment was removed last night in the Guadalajara Liberation Square. And that's of concern to us, particularly in the Christmas season, that the right of the teachers to protect their jobs, protect their seniority and professionalization is heard by people around the world. So I want to thank this Assembly for hearing these concerns. Thank you.
We will hear now a representative from government, constituent. I'd like just to clarify that those from business and civil society that have also indicated their wish to speak, we'll come back to you in a second round. We'll do our best to identify those who have already indicated their wish. So I invite a representative from government to offer comments on SDGs 1 to 9. Are there any volunteers from government? Yes, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. My name is Wisdom Donko. I'm from Ghana, and then I work within government. And I have some few observations from the panelists. Okay, the past 30 years, I would say, have seen a tremendous growth in the capabilities and reach of ICTs. The internet especially has become a critical enabler of social and economic change, transformation how government, business, and citizens interact, and offering new ways of addressing new challenges. Now, what I think is that before we can reach the SDGs, we need to consider one or two things. The first of all is infrastructure. Especially from the developing world, we need to start considering developing our infrastructure. Without infrastructure, I don't think we'll be able to reach the SDGs. And then the next one is we also need to get a funding mechanism to support government. Developing world, government have too many responsibilities, and then sometimes it takes government away from critical issues like the internet governance. So if you have a special funding mechanism that can specifically address issues of the internet, infrastructure, access, and all that, that will also help. And then we also need to start considering open data. Before we can start accounting for the SDGs, we need to open up our data. Government needs to open up data. It is based on this data that we can address the issues of the internet infrastructure and all that. I think this is my contribution.
Thank you. And now we'd like to see if there's a volunteer from the technical community to make an intervention. Please, thank you. And thank you for everyone keeping to the 3 minutes. It's been very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ISOC Kyrgyzstan. My name is Talan Sultanov. I would like to bring attention to Central Asia, where I come from. Internet is very important for our region in terms of developing SDGs, because this region is the most vulnerable for accomplishing these goals. Countries like Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan are landlocked, the most far located from the sea among any other countries, and they're also very high, very highest mountains in our region. So that makes our region very vulnerable. The climate change the fluctuations are very high in the region, and the glaciers that supply water for the whole region are melting. But in terms of contribution to climate change, our carbon emissions are among the lowest in the world, whereas electricity consumption is 95% is from renewable sources. So recognizing these vulnerabilities, the countries of Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, for example, are focusing on development strategies that are based on sustainability and knowledge economy. And we are right now working on a concept called smart Kyrgyzstan, and therefore I would like to ask for cooperation in terms of know-how sharing, knowledge sharing, and in terms of investment to help our countries to accomplish sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start back over here with the business community, and remember we are discussing Sustainable Development Goals 1 through 8. Thank you.
Andy, I'll bring it down to you in a second. Don't worry. It's Garland McCoy with Technology Education Institute, and one of the inputs I'd like to throw out there is having been a part of this for now 10 IGFs, is the necessity in my mind of expanding to other corporate, global corporate entities that understand already the value that ICTs and the internet have to their global supply chain, their back office, and so you don't have to sit down with them and do a long educational piece on the value of the internet, but can help, I think, if we could bring them in, the Hilton hotels, the Caterpillars, the Boeings. For example, right around here we have, you can take a distiller's tour of all the tequila distilleries. I'm sure they're owned by Allied Domecq or others, or have partnerships, these global communities, and obviously have their products displayed all over the world for people who love tequila. The point being, they understand, all these multinational companies, the value of the internet, and if we could get them involved as being disciples in helping educate the government officials in why it is important to have broadband access for this hotel that the Hilton Hotel they're going to build on the beach, because it's important for the tourists that are going to come in. They're going to want that. The convention folks are going to want that internet connection. That are going to come for fill the convention hall in the hotel. So if we could slowly over the years make that a goal and have them helping us with the Sustainable Development Goals, I think that would be a real plus. So,
thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. We'll turn to civil society, and I'd like to recognize the gentleman on the fourth row who had asked for the floor before. You have the floor. Yes, please. You have the floor.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Eduardo Rojas, vengo de Bolivia. Voy a hablar considerando un contexto previo. He trabajado con el gobierno boliviano, he sido parte de la comunidad técnica de Internet Society y actualmente trabajo con APC como parte de sociedad civil organizada. Una primera reflexión que me gustaría poner sobre la mesa es si estamos hablando de gobernanza de Internet o vamos a contextualizar la gobernanza de Internet en la gobernanza de la sociedad de la información. Este abordaje estructural es fundamental porque mientras centremos nuestra atención en la tecnología y en la herramienta, vamos a favorecer modelos de negocios, perdiendo de vista al ser humano. Considero importante recuperar los principios de la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de la Información, donde la centralidad la tiene el ser humano. Esto parece un discurso, pero es importante porque si hablamos de gobernanza de la sociedad de la información y no solamente de Internet como una herramienta técnica, vamos a retomar la orientación hacia el ser humano. Primer punto. Segundo, a partir de esta reflexión, considero importantísimo que para dar respuesta a los objetivos de desarrollo del milenio, más bien de desarrollo sostenible, debemos centrarnos en la generación de una interfaz y de un proceso de acceso a la información de los seres humanos y no con las máquinas. Estoy hablando de trabajar la generación de una ciudadanía inteligente, una ciudadanía informada. En cuanto el ser humano no acceda a información para cambiar sus métodos y la forma de ver el mundo y la realidad, no vamos a poder cambiar la realidad global que estamos viviendo ahora. El ser humano hoy necesita más que nunca, no inversión en tecnología solamente,
necesita, además de inversión en tecnología, particularmente inversión en información para cambiar el cerebro y la mentalidad de la humanidad, que cada vez requiere mayores insumos para tomar decisiones y fortalecerse a sí mismos y a sus comunidades. Creo que esto es relevante poner sobre la mesa. Hablamos de generar una ciudadanía informada, una ciudadanía inteligente, porque el acceso a información va a permitir que el ciudadano hoy tome decisiones contextualizadas a nivel global. Gracias.
Bueno, gracias por sus comentarios. En principio, la idea era recoger comentarios, inputs, más que reaccionar de la mesa. Pero yo, en respuesta a sus indagaciones, yo diría que el marco en que estamos trabajando, en que estamos buscando hacer las correlaciones entre los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible y la gobernanza de Internet, está en el marco, justamente como ha dicho usted, de lo que viene de la cumbre mundial. Es decir, eso lo estamos mirando, la gobernanza de Internet, desde el punto de vista de la complejidad y de los diversos ángulos que se han explotado en la cumbre, es decir, incluyendo aspectos de ética, de privacidad, de derechos humanos, es decir, cómo la gobernanza y cómo mejorar el ambiente de la gobernanza de Internet para ajustarse y para contribuir a los objetivos. Así que no es una visión, por lo menos es la propuesta que tenemos, ¿no? No podemos impedir que las intervenciones específicas tengan otra dirección, pero el punto de vista que favorecemos es una visión bastante amplia, basada en la visión de la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de Información. Si eso puede ayudar, tal vez, no sé si responde a su indagación, pero es importante, me parece importante para aclarar el ámbito en el cual estamos operando. Bueno, muchas gracias. Y, bueno, we'll turn now again to the government stakeholder group. I'd like to invite another comment. I recognize, please, so you have the floor.
My name is Ismail Shah, and I am the chairman of the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. We are a regulator of the telecom sector. The points that I'd like to raise are that if you look at the SDGs, the main issue that it is trying to address is poverty and inequality. There are opportunities if you look at the ICTs and internet in specific. It provides opportunities for learning, for getting services. But there are certain threats that we need to be aware of, and some of the speakers, in fact, did mention that. And one of the threats is that exclusion of those people who do not have access to these services. In fact, with this, the digital divide may even become broader. So this is something that we need to look into, how to provide access, not just the access, but affordable access, and also the relevant education that they need to have in order to take advantage of the benefits that the internet offers. The second point, and I agree with the last speaker on this, which is basically collaboration. And I agree that we need to have people from the development sector here, because ICTs or internet, it can solve some of the problems that they actually are experts in. So ICTs, if you look at it, it's a tool. It's not the end in itself. So basically, we need people who are working on these problems are related to development, and then with ICTs, we can solve them. Here, I'd like to relate one of the initiatives that we have taken. So we are working with persons with disabilities, and we have involved them. So we asked them, okay, so what are the issues that you're facing? And then we are trying to find solutions using ICTs for them. So if there is an interest, I can give you more information on that. There is also a need about the general information related to the SDGs. Many of the people actually don't even know exactly about the SDGs, so we need to have more awareness about SDGs. And the last thing that I'd like to add for the future IGF is that we need to have focused session on maybe one or more than one, but a few of the SDGs, have some case studies presented in detail, and also we need to have a way of measuring progress, how can we measure progress that we have achieved using ICTs for that particular SDGs? Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move to hear an intervention from the technical community. Please raise your hand if you want to speak.
Thank you. My name is George Sadowski. I'm associated with ICANN, but I'm speaking in my personal capacity here. I want to support as strongly as possible David Souter's suggestion that next year, and maybe earlier than next year, we have people who are development experts addressing us as well as us addressing issues of development. I live in a developed country. Most of us here do, I think. And we know how to do business in a developed country. We know how to learn. We know how to exploit ICT elements to earn money, to learn more things, to live our lives in more productive ways. We understand our own methods of production of these things. In developing countries, those of us who have worked in them are often very surprised that the methods by which things get done, the constraints that exist that we don't know about, the opportunities that exist that we don't know about are there. And the way in which we can get things done, the way in which we can make progress in many aspects of life in developing countries depends upon a knowledge of the process of development. People who are development experts have a lot of experience. They are as concerned about progress in economic and social development as we are. They know this field. They are not averse to the use of ICT, although some of them may be a little bit awkward and not work with it well, but they want to find tools that make their job easier and allow them to make progress. We need to include them in our thinking, and we need to understand what they know that we don't so that we can make joint progress together. So I strongly support the suggestion in any way that can be implemented in any forum that has to do with ICT for development. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move back to the business community, I did want to check in with our remote moderator if there's any questions coming in on that front. I don't think we have any. Remote moderator, are there any comments? Nope. Okay. Just want to do the check. So with that, representative, please, from the business community.
Thank you. My name is Naveen Tandon. I'm the president for the Association of Competitive Telecom Operators. It's a global carrier association based out of New Delhi, India. I have two questions first on the MAG and the functioning of the IGF. First is for the MAG chair. We've learned that throughout the year, the IGF also encourages inter-sessional work at various different levels. Some of the work was presented today. Can you give us a full overview of the all intersessional work streams that currently exist or plan to be introduced in the future? And how can the broader internet governance community engage in contributing to this work? The second question is for the Secretariat at the IGF, for Mr. Chengetai. We've seen that the IGF website seems to have been improving over the years. Could you discuss a little bit about the IGF website, what has improved over the last few years, what are some of the new features, and how can the broader community engage more interactively with the Secretariat and the MAG using the IGF website? Thank you so much.
May I just remind everyone that this is also supposed to be a consultation period, so we're looking for comments, but I will leave it at the pleasure of the two people that the questions were posed to if they want to respond.
I can respond quickly, not to disrupt this particular panel, but this afternoon from 3 to 4, there's a Setting the Scene session, which will actually cover all of the main sessions. And this year, one of the things we are doing is much more prominently featuring all the intersessional work, whether it's best practice forums, dynamic coalitions, or the work of the NRIs. There's also 2 NRI sessions over the course of the next few days, and the same thing for dynamic coalition sessions. So I think, again, just not to disrupt this particular forum, if people would look through the agenda, they should see very specific workshop slots which would address you to actually explore those in more depth. And with respect to the website improvements, we can find a way to take that offline and get you the information you're requesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one logistical arrangement, because it's a challenge for us as moderators to make sure that we have the right order of speakers who have requested for the floor. So I'd like to request some help from Marilyn, Kate, and Igor. Maybe if you could help us to organize the list of speakers so we make sure that we don't lose people who have asked for the floor and then in the second round may be overruled by someone else who is closer to the microphone. So with that comment, I'd like to turn to civil society. I recognize gentlemen who had asked before for the floor. Can someone, yes, the gentleman who has stand up, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Arturo Serrano. I'm a researcher in the intersection of innovation, development, and ICTs. And I think we have a great opportunity to use ICT for development. We know that. But I'd like to pose this question of development in the perspective of who? Whose perspective? The vendors? The government? But I think that we're missing the perspective of the people that are going to be developed, because they know exactly what to get. And I agree with the gentleman with Bolivia. I think we need a framework that helps us to connect more deeply these aspects of development with the needs of other populations, because I think it is fundamental. So this perspective of development has to be really thought of. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. That is certainly taken on board. I will turn now to the government. Yes, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, again, my name is Wisdom from Ghana. Assessing IG in SDGs. Now, what do I want to see in the next IGF meeting? We have to begin to start showing an impact. What do I mean by saying this? We need to at least bring some of the sectors within our communities. Let's say the health sector. We need to start bringing them to IGF for them to show us what actually they are using the internet to do, and then what are some of the challenges they are facing. We also have the agri sector. We want to solve the problems or issues within that sector. We also need to start bringing them for them to tell us what they are using ICT for. And if possible, maybe the MAC chair, if possible, IGF can also organize a kind of a hackathon for us to bring some of the developers around, provide them with data, and then let them at least help with some tools that can be used in reaching the SDGs.
Thank you. And we'll take a question from, I know we have a gentleman in the front here who's been raising his hand several times, so please, sir. And then after this intervention, we'll move to the second set of SDGs and comments on those. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'm Xiaodong Li from China Internet Information Center. So you know that I'm from a country which is the largest internet population country. But you know that the penetration rate of China internet is only a little bit more than 50%. It's 51%. It's only 2% more than the average rate of the world internet population. But you know that China is just a small image of the world. You know, we have the modern city of Beijing or Shanghai, with the penetration rate is more than 70%. But we also have a lot of cities in Western China, and in rural area, their penetration rate is less than 30%. So you know, there's a lot of barriers for people to connect the internet. For example, the connection rate, the technologies, or the cost of the device, and also some multilingual or localized method. So there's a lot of barriers. So it's a very big challenge for China to connect the next 700 million people into the internet. So I think I know Chinese government want to have a big target, want to achieve 1 billion internet users in next 10 years. So I think it's a big challenge. So I encourage the forum and also encourage the world to work together with China to find the right path to achieve that. So, you know, if we can solve this problem, if we can find the right way to connect more people in China, we can find the right path for the world to connect the next billions. I think if we can work together, that means in the future the achievement will benefit the world again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We do have a comment, intervention from the remote moderator, so please. Bear with us as we get the microphone to work. Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll be moving to a discussion on our second set of SDGs, so that is SDG 9 through 16. And with that, we will start with the business community.
Listo.
Marilyn?
Thank you, Ambassador Fonseca. My name is Marilyn Cade. Igor and I were invited by Ambassador Fonseca to organize this section. Let me explain what we're going to do to speed it up. We're asking in each section, please, if you want to speak in this segment, you're going to raise your hand and hand a business card to your mic person, okay? All at one time. So if there are 10 of you or 12 of you or 4 of you, we're going to know in this section how many want to speak. There'll be someone collecting this. You're going to raise your hand in the technical community, and your person will collect your business cards. We'll do that in government. We'll do that in the technical community. That way, then we'll start with the first speaker, but you will know, moderators, how many speakers you have, and we'll do the count and come back to you after you've done your next round, and that will allow us to perhaps help to speed and even to know if we need to go to 2-minute segments. So, if I might, with your permission, segment by segment, don't look at me, look at her. If you want to speak, raise your hand and hand her a business card. In the civil society, you need to do the same thing. In the technical community,
and might I also add, Marilyn, if you already have spoken, to please sit around out so someone who has not spoken has the opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Igor will collect the government and IGO, and Sagoon will collect the technical community. And now, if we might, take just a minute to do that, and then we'll give you the mic to the first business speaker. Sorry?
Sorry, Marilyn, we weren't hearing you.
We can start with the business speaker, and then we'll be ready with the civil society, and I'm going to start with David Voist, and then we will go to the civil society, and then we have 2 more business speakers.
Hi, my name is David Voist. I'm the executive director of ISOC DC, the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Internet Society, as well as the co-chair of the IGF USA. And in my comment, I'd like to address how our national initiatives addresses and highlights the SDGs. The SDGs and connecting the next billion are key values that inform our conference. in 2015 and 2016, we had plenary sessions on connecting the next billion. And in 2015, we had an open consultation on the WSIS Plus 10. Our program is determined through multi-stakeholder input in the sense that we have open meetings, we collect suggestions and recommendations from our entire community by email and in meetings, and then we conduct a survey to figure out which programs to turn into sessions or which suggestions to turn into sessions. And the fact that these rank so highly every year and become main sessions show how important these things are to our initiative and our community. Thank you.
So thank you for your comments. According to the rotating, we should now turn to civil society. Who would be the first speaker for civil society, please?
Hello. My name is Marcelo Saldanha. I am from Open and Free Networks movement, and I want to ask two things. How could we build a free and open internet if the only model is based on the market one? And how could we change the culture that internet is a right and only on the shelved product? We think that these issues, or some issues to think, is digital cities and community networks, building unbundling infrastructure with the focus in the democratic governance through a legal and regulatory environment that allow this new model. I want to put these issues to think, and if the moderators have a point. Thank you.
Thank you for the interventions and for the points raised. Those are taken into account. And in case anyone wishes to touch on this in their comments, they're more than invited. So I will turn to the government stakeholder group. And I look forward to your guidance, Marilyn, or anyone who is taking care of government, who would be the first to speak for that segment. We are focusing on SDGs 9 to 16, but of course there are some comments that are comprehensive and they would fit in any of the segments. Is there someone from government? Yes, Marilyn.
I believe Marilyn said that we were moving to the technical community.
Okay.
And then we'll go back. Okay. So please, someone from the technical community would like to make an intervention, SDG 9 through 16.
Hello?
Oh.
Okay, my name is Mary Uduma. I've been raising my hand at the first segment of this discussion because that segment so much speaks to my environment, that is the developing country and Africa. And if we are looking at no poverty, zero hunger, healthcare, and all the rest of them, I think what we should be discussing here are some of the things that the technology, the solutions technology can bring to get this, to allow government and all stakeholders to achieve this sustainable development goal. For me, I think indigenous technology services, especially the broadband services will so much help in achieving so much of the sustainable development goals. So we should address broadband, even at the local level. We should also look at local content, making sure that what we are developing is relevant to the environment where we are developing it for. So local content, and in terms of local content, we should also ask, see what we can do to engage those that think that the E of everything will take away their jobs. is a big issue. We had in Nigeria, we held our e-Nigeria, and those from the health sector said that their workers are not ready to accept new technologies because they feel that it's going to replace them and they will go out of jobs. So those are issues that our technology should address, reassuring the workforce or the sector that is involved that even if there's new technologies, even if there are innovations, that it will even expand their reach of getting more customers to their sector. I have a lot to say, but let me stop here because of the time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to check with Marilyn if we're going back.
Actually, we're going to the remote moderator and then to the government.
Thank you.
Where's the government?
Thank you very much. A comment made earlier by Deirdre Williams from St. Lucia. She was very happy about the person who made a comment concerning involving persons with disability, and she would like to get the contacts for the person. Another comment from Deirdre Williams: I am concerned about our apparent reluctance to use technology. We talk about it so much simply as a tool to make things happen for whatever reason. There are only 3 remote participants in this session, at least at the moment. If we who are already convinced don't use the tool, how can we expect the next billion to use it? That's a comment from Deirdre Williams, Civil Society, St. Lucia, West Indies. Thank you.
Thank you for this comment. I think this is actually something you have to think about. And I turn then to government. Marilyn, can we be guided on who should be the next speaker, please?
Question from WebEx. We're going to have to get the question read out from WebEx, so we will hear from one government, then we'll go to WebEx, and then we'll start our cycle again. Thank you.
Thank you. And my name is Wang Jianchao. I'm from Chinese Cyberspace Administration, DG level. I'm glad to have some comment on the 9th SDGs regarding the innovation. In fact, innovation have become the critical issue for the IG. And from the point of China, we have 2 aspects to have comment. First is that innovation itself is the most powerful driven for the ICT, for the internet development. Innovation will introduce more new technology and a new commercial mode to the internet itself. Second, the internet has become the most important means to promote the overall economy development. So China government have launched Internet Plus action plan to promote the overall development, economy development. Finally, I would introduce you briefly regarding the Chinese government organized the World Internet Conference meeting. This conference meeting has been held for 3 times, and last month the 3rd WRC meeting was held in Wuzhen city, and in fact over 1,600 guests from more than 110 countries participated in the meeting, and the theme of the meeting is innovation-driven internet development for the benefit of all. We do want to welcome all the internet-related peoples to join our meeting to discuss the innovation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and I believe we were going to a WebEx comment. I don't think we do at this point. So we'll start our cycle, and thank you for your patience as we sorted that out. With now, we will move to the business community, and again, guidance on who our next speaker will be. Thank you.
Is it working? Oh, yes. Hi. My name is Andrew Mack. I run a consulting firm called AM Global based in Washington, D.C. I am also a former World Bank person and MSF person, and so all of the discussion around bringing more voices from the development community into this strikes me as a very good thing. I wanted to touch on something that was alluded to by our colleague in Bolivia and our colleague in Nigeria and others, which is at the root of a lot of what we're seeing is this issue of employment. Fundamentally, what we're looking at, all of these development goals are very much dependent on us having enough resource for our families, for our communities, and that really translates, in my mind, into jobs. In Africa, in the next 10 years, there will be 124 million new people coming into the workforce, aging into the workforce, 25 million of them just in Nigeria. And so one of the things that I think we need to really focus on if we're serious about the SDGs is to focus on ways in which we can structure our conversation not just around the end results, education and health, but on the things that will make those changes sustainable, which is jobs for me, jobs for my family, and in that, a future for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the civil society and academic. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Helen Ladrón de Guevara. I'm a past president of the Public Library section of the Mexican Library Association, and I am an active member of IFLA and the Committee of Freedom of Access to Information and Freedom of Expression. I just want to remind all of us of the humanitarian role of public libraries. We have a golden opportunity to empower civil society as the strongest allies to move faster towards the sustainable development goals. The second thought that I have and I would like to share is this. This situation exists in many parts of the world, like corruption, the lack of transparency, the lack of a good government that in all of these situations hinders the development of goals to improve the lives of the common citizens and benefits only personal interest. So please, I think all of us have to be aware of corruption exists in many parts of the world. There's a lack of transparency, and there's not a good governance or open governance in many places of the world. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll turn to government.
Hold on, we do have a new volunteer. Please go ahead. We are going to give the mic to government. Sorry we didn't have that volunteer, and then we're going to the technical community. If you're from the government and you haven't given us your card, you must give it to us now in order to get a speaking queue.
Okay, this is Vice Payab from Afghanistan, working for the Ministry of Communications and IT. Talking about SDGs, we were just working on how we can define our actions back in our country. But it's quite challenging. When we talk about the goals like zero hunger, I mean, in countries where you're in war and in countries where you're not in war, so how could we really define these goals to be achievable in all those countries? So the premises, the environment differ. The same applies to the internet governance and achieving those sustainable development goals. Since internet is one of the crucial enabling element in achieving some of these sustainable development goals. But when we look back at the developing countries, the affordability and the access to this enabling tool is indeed a huge challenge. So if we look back, like at least 3 years back, 1 megabit of internet costed us around $1,200 per month. So today we are somewhere between $150 and $200 per megabit per month. How we can really reach to our farmers in order to benefit from internet, in order to achieve the goals set by the Sustainable Development Goals. So I would say that we should rather focus on how we can really make internet affordable in those parts of the region. So instead of making internet a commercial business or only a commercial profiting element, why not internet be considered as enabling the businesses, not only to be the mainstream of business? Thank you.
Thank you. And, well, we're moving to the technical community. Please, thank you.
Hello, my name's Paul Wilson from APNIC. We are the IP address registry for the Asia Pacific. I wanted to speak about Goal 9 on infrastructure, particularly on the need to build human capacity in the development and provision of internet infrastructure and services around the world. This has a huge significance in the context of IGF because of the critical dependency on the internet that we all assume here. Sorry, we're lucky in developed markets that we take many things for granted in terms of internet speed, reliability, and ongoing improvement. But we tend to transfer that attitude in development activities which support ICT and internet development. But in fact, these things cannot be taken for granted in any market, whether it's developed or developing. The difference between a stable, cheap, affordable, and secure internet service and one which is none of these things can be solely and simply a matter of the human skills and capacities which are brought to bear in properly designing and operating those services. We can in fact assume, with some qualification, the availability of those skills in developed markets, but definitely not in developing markets. And this may not be unique, of course, to internet infrastructures, but I mention it here specifically because this is what the IGF is about. And because also even here I see an assumption that internet services sort of happen for free, for instance, after undersea cables may have been installed to link a particular country. As I say, they don't happen for free or automatically, and I want to urge attention to the human factor in development of internet services over the top of, for instance, over the top of cables and other infrastructures that are being deployed at the moment. A recent study which APNIC funded showed that in the case of Pacific cable connections, it's possible to show that in many, many cases the internet traffic between two countries does not flow over those cable connections. And the reason for this is simply human skills and capacities to properly manage those network connections. So I just want to mention that the technical community, as part of the multi-stakeholder internet community, has performed a really big role over many years, in fact, in assisting education and training and professional development, and particularly through non-profit structures such as network operator groups, non-profit conferences, development fellowships, and so on. My organisation, APNIC, works with others, including the Internet Society, the Network Startup Resource Centre, and many others, in providing training and technical assistance to those people who need that support in providing, as I say, secure, stable, cheap, affordable internet services. So these aren't commercial or sales activities. This is non-profit, neutral forums, and as I say, part of a multi-stakeholder environment that supports internet development, not just internet governance. And I felt that this deserves a mention here in this session, particularly in connection with goal number 9. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're just keeping a watch on the clock as well. So we're going to be moving for one more round on this group of SDGs, 9 through 16, moving over to the business community. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Tomlinson and I represent an initiative of the International Chamber of Commerce called Business Action to Support the Information Society. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to go back to the other set of SDGs because I'd like to focus on one specific one, SDG 3, ensure healthy lives and improve well-being for all ages. I think when people think about emerging technologies such as the Internet of Things, the industrial internet, sometimes we can get wrapped up in developed world issues like automatic cars and intelligent fridges. But it's important, particularly at IGF, to consider how sensors and the internet can be leveraged to provide technological solutions for societal benefit in all countries at all levels of development, and provide concrete examples for discussions like this. Low-tech solutions in developing countries are enabling quality and affordable healthcare for the middle and lower-income segments of society. For example, computers and the internet can be used to take photos of symptoms or injuries and send back to doctors and hospitals in cities. This saves time and also avoids the patient having to travel. ICTs can also be used to supply energy to hospitals. When reliable electricity is problematic in rural areas, solar-powered shipping containers can actually be used as cyber cafes. So I think when we consider these concrete examples, it highlights why we should encourage commercially available solutions to accelerate different types of innovation and adoption of ICTs, and have flexible and particularly long-term outlooks when it comes to approaching strategies to harness emerging technology. And echoing some of the points that have already been raised in this session, that a multi-stakeholder but also a cross-sectoral approach in the different stakeholder groups is really important, so that policy making and regulations don't create unintended consequences, but really make sure the societal benefits of technology is beneficial and inclusive for all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll hear representatives from civil society or academic.
Civil society we have 4 remaining civil society speakers. We're going to do 2 back-to-back, then go, if there's anyone from government who still is volunteering, and then we'll come back and do the last 2 civil society, and then we're wrapped for this segment, and we'll do the same approach of collecting speakers and prioritizing for the next section. So 2 civil society back-to-back, then we'll invite government, if anyone raises their hand, come back to the last 2 civil society.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Flavia Lefebvre from Protest Consumers Association, and I'm also a representative in Internet Committee, Steering Committee in Brazil, CGIBR, and I'm speaking in my own capacity. I just want to agree with the important proposal made in the table to make a study in order to identify the relevant multi-stakeholder models to encourage countries to adopt it and to strengthen the good models that are already underway, especially to avoid that the internet governance is just driven by markets and governments' interests. I think this can be an important work in order to give effectivity to the goal 16, effective institutions, and also to guarantee values like universal and democratic access to internet and to knowledge. I think this work can be made here in this context of IGF, but so in the context of the Net Mundial that has as a goal the universalization and the development of the multi-stakeholder models to the internet governance. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。我是来自中国网络空间安全协会的秘书长，也是世界互联网大会组委会高级别专家咨询委员会的秘书长。我认为可持续发展是一个非常重要的话题，这也是人类社会进入到网络时代的时候所面临的最严峻的一个挑战。 当我们看到有将近一半的人可以接入到互联网的时候，我们也意识到还有另一半人还不能接入到互联网。所以这一半人能够做哪些事情，为另一半人他的接入能够提供一些实质的帮助，这是非常重要的。就像我们希望能够把左手和右手连接到一块儿，让所有的人因为网络连接成为一个整体。那么我想呢，在刚刚结束的第3届世界互联网大会上面，高级别专家咨询委员会 HAC 发布了2016年世界互联网发展乌镇报告。我想把这个报告当中我们涉及到对于未来全球互联网发展和治理的一些共识性的东西跟大家做一些分享。第一个，我们认为发展中国家将持续在全球互联网的发展当中保持令人瞩目的势头。数字鸿沟问题仍然是备受关注，数字红利逐渐惠及全球，以促进联合国的2030年可持续发展议程目标的这个实现。另外，我们也认为网络空间的文化交流更加频繁，网络文化日益繁荣，文化的多样性将获得更多的理解和尊重。我们同样认为，各国将继续保持对网络安全问题的高度重视，在尊重网络主权、尊重联合国宪章的国际法和国际关系准则的基础上，制定各国普遍接受的网络空间国际规则，成为国际社会的一个共同的愿望。我们还认为，多边的参与、多方的参与将成为互联网治理的一个常态。政府、国际组织、互联网企业、技术社群、民间机构、科研院校和公民都将作为各类主体，积极作为，共同推进共享和共治的这样的一种务实合作，为促进互联网的可持续发展提供持续性的这个贡献。同样，我们也意识到，网络安全和互联网治理的国际交流与合作正在成为国际社会最为关注的话题之一。越来越多的国家和国际组织将推动全球互联网的发展与治理方面发挥更为积极的作用。所以在这方面，我们想到促进全球的网络基础设施的互联互通，促进网络文化的交流互鉴，促进数字经济的开放发展，促进网络空间的和平发展，对于我们的整个的人类社会的可持续发展具有极其重要的价值和意义。我希望未来我们在座的各位也都能够在对于全球的互联网治理和发展方面的研究提供更多更有价值的意见和建议。谢谢。
Thank you for your comments. I understand now we turn to government in case there is a volunteer from government. Anyone? Yes. Peter, you have the floor.
Yeah. I tried to intervene as acting chair of the CSTD, which is the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. And I really want to congratulate the panel and all the participants who took the floor to remind us the WSIS original goal. It was a people-centered, people-oriented information society. And it has been announced by Patrick, who has already left. Then it was echoed by David. And many of you coming from developed or developing countries, that this is the importance of the whole exercise. And keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind the name of the commission I'm chairing, that is Commission on Science, Technology for Development, I think science should also mean social science. And I will encourage the Commission in its future work to concentrate on these issues. We have heard concerns about employment, about the perception of the technology development. And we can understand the concerns which have been expressed. So I will really concentrate on this part of the science to make clear to all of us how to proceed in internet governance and how to make use of the results we have achieved in the multi-stakeholder model in the internet governance. since I have the floor, I would like to point out that right now in the Commission we have a multi-stakeholder working group, which is being chaired by our moderator, Ambassador Fonseca. And I'm really proud of that achievement, which is the second one, in fact, after the improvements to the IGF itself. And I'm very pleased to see that the recommendations which have been given by this working group are being implemented, are regularly being implemented, and this session is also a good example of that. So to conclude, I will go back to Geneva and I will encourage the Commission in its coming intersessional meeting in January to concentrate on issues which have been brought up here and to proceed in this sense. Thank you.
I will move to the technical community. Any representative would like to speak? Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you. I am Li Yunhan from China Internet Network Information Center. Hereby, I would like to express my appreciation for the great efforts to achieve the SDGs in the next 20 or 30 years. And I think different countries and the regions have to face the different situations. So maybe the next step we have to do is to find out the different best practice and to share them and let more and more people to find out the best way to conquer the problems. So hereby, I would like to share some information from China's side because in this August, I traveled to many poorest cities in China and did some field research there. And I found out that in the local cities, they try to figure out the different ways to support the poverty relief, such as they built up the e-commerce park for the poorest people and to teach them how to use the e-platform to sell their local foods, local products. And what impressed me mostly is that there is a disabled people. He lost his legs, but he can use the e-commerce platform to sell their local foods and earned maximum at 8,000 yuan renminbi for each month. So I think maybe and the government provides many privilege policies to enhance the park, and more people benefit from these methods. So I think in the world there must be many best ways to remain to us to find out them. So that's what I mean. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Marilyn. Civil society? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Lutz. I'm interning at the Columbia Center for Sustainable Investments. I will be speaking here in my personal capacity. I'm a youngster at this assembly, so I'm very excited to be here. And I just wanted to throw a thought at this assembly today. I think we've acknowledged a lot today that jobs are really at the core of achieving the SDGs. And we have to keep in mind that technologies today will bring a lot that can change our lives for the better, which is amazing. And it also means that they will replace many jobs in the future and in the really close future, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, not all jobs are great to do, so it's more positive. But we have to think about it. And it also means we will have to rethink the way we we have this concept of labor, the way we want to design the labor force, and what we're going to do when a large segment of the labor market will not be needed anymore. So this brings us to alternatives, for example, like the universal income, which has been shown here several times. And it's really important that we begin to have these discussions. So I guess it's great that we have these opportunities and these forums where we can bring people from all communities, the businesses, the governments, and the civil society to begin to think of those alternatives because the changes are coming fast and we have to act now. So thank you very much for being here today. And yeah.
Thank you. We should turn now to the last segment and focus specifically on SDG 17, on partnerships for the goals. But what I'd like to suggest is that we could take some final comments from the audience and then we'll turn to the rapporteur, because I think all of us will want to listen to more systematic appraisal of the session and think about the way forward. I think that we still need to hear from the audience, those who have been inscribed, and then we'll move to the rapporteur immediately. So I turn to you, Marilyn, to guide us on the last speakers from the audience.
I'm also going to recommend we go to 2 minutes statements due to time. We have a number of civil society speakers in queue. We're going to ask you to raise your hand on the business side. Someone will take your card. It's going to be a 2-minute time slot. Then we will go. We have already, I think, 3 or 4 from civil society. We're going to collect business cards on the government side. And please, if you're going to speak as government and you don't have a card, please write your name and your government. We need to collect those. And then technical community, and they ought to be able, if we go 2 minutes, we ought to be able to go quickly and make sure we get everybody and wrap up and stay on time. So we're going to start now. If you want to speak on the business side, raise your hand. Somebody will get your... and actually, we have one hand right now. We're going to get started with that. Here, if you're civil society, you want to speak and you haven't given her your card or a piece of paper, do so. On the government side, someone will take your card over there. On the technical side, we can start with Jimson, and then we'll get you the rest of the count.
Thank you very much. This is a good moderator. Again, my name is Jameson Olufuye, chair of AFICTA. Well, talking about partnership, I think this is the core of the matter. At the international community, it has been clearly established that internationally there is support for SDG. Now, this decision needs to be made at the national level. It is very important. There are 3 decision options. Whether we are following it through wholeheartedly, or we are just approaching it minimally, or we're going to do nothing. So every nation needs to make that decision that we are buying into the SDG. Very important. And having made a decision that you're going to buy into it, then we need to take active steps, practical steps. For example, there has to be open government across all sectors. Last week, when we discussed at the forum, we found out that there are many research outputs that could enhance governance, that could enhance job creation, that are just lying there. Nobody knows about them. So there has to be a better publication of outputs at the academic research level, better publication of activities at the government level, so open government initiative, very, very important. And we need to drive the message home at the sub-national level. And I'm happy to say again that Nigeria started this first sub-national IGF. It's in the 2nd edition. At the local level, that is a regional sub-national level, you have all stakeholders coming together, addressing local issues. So we need to build partnership to the local level. And I give us a practical example of what has happened. When we had this summit last 2 months in October in Namibia, here we have the private sector that has funding to deploy into the remote areas. You know, Namibia is very vast. So they needed government buying. And to get government to be part of it has been quite challenging. So that summit created opportunity for government and private sector to come together. So, but the conversation is ongoing. So in most cases, fundings are in the hands of the private sector, but if the government or other stakeholders are not available, then you cannot flow. So there has to be fundamental decision that nations need to make, that they are having buy-in. They buy into these SDGs, and they are determined to make it happen. And lastly, there has to be monitoring and evaluation. There has to be continuous monitoring and evaluation to know where we are so that we can achieve the result. But the key thing is partnership, and partnership guarantees the success of all the SDGs from the 1st to 16. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So now we listen to the last interventions from civil society representatives, back to back, all those who have been inscribed. And
Mi nombre es Ana Karen González, vengo de Reynosa, Tamaulipas. Yo creo que para reducir la brecha digital se debe de implementar en cada sociedad, en cada familia, capacitar en cada familia los valores, se debe necesitar capacitar a cada familia los valores del Internet. Muchas personas, el Internet es un gran impacto psicológico, social y económico, y muchas personas no tienen el acceso a capacitadas. Cada padre de familia no es capacitado apto para, la mayoría de las personas no tienen las capacidades necesarias para poder implementar en sus hijos el Internet. Se necesita en cada colonia implementar centros con personas capacitadas para el Internet. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias por su intervención. Is there anyone else from civil society who would? So we'll take the last statement from civil society, we'll move to government, to technical, and then we wrap up and listen to the rapporteur. Please, you have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to raise a concern. This is a UN-organized event, and I'm afraid that there are still so many or too many countries around the world who are UN members and who are too much isolated from these processes. So I would like to call on the organizers to put a mechanism in place so that each country can be called upon to talk to these issues we are discussing here, if not to be accountable, because the Sustainable Development Goals are a UN-adopted document, so they are supposed to be accountable to that, I believe. And whatever we are discussing here in the corner of internet governance regarding those goals need to be brought up to every one of those countries so that what we are wishing for here can be implemented or can be at least, we can register some progress on the ground. The reason why I'm saying this is that in too many countries, particularly in Africa, internet is still treated like a luxury good. And you'll find countries where still to have access, quite a basic access to the internet, people have to spend 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the minimum wage to have access to the internet. So you're not going to have significant progress on development goals in countries where people have to spend 4 times their minimum wage to access the internet. So I would like to see some progress made in those countries as well. So I'm calling on the UN to put a mechanism, a follow-up mechanism in place so that those countries can be called upon to speak to these issues. Just last year, in some country, I'm not going to give names, the Minister of ICT didn't know what IGF is about. And that minister has been in place for at least 4 years. So after 10 years of IGF, some ministers still don't know what IGF is. So I think we need to make sure that whatever we come to IGF, to this forum to discuss, I know we are not a decision-making body, but once there's some consensus emerging around some issues or some decision to be made wherever it needs to be made, those countries, each one of those countries, not in multilateral or multi-stakeholder arenas like this with general talking points, but each one of those countries has to be called upon and ask them what, if they are making any progress on this and this and this point that we agree on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Speak for 1 minute each. Earlier, they didn't respond to my invitation, but we persuaded them, right? Then we have a technical community speaker for 2 minutes, and we have one final civil society limited to 2 minutes, and then we're done.
Yes, my name is Wisdom Donko. Quickly, to add up to my brother from Nigeria, I just want to give a case of Ghana. Within the telecom sector, you know, their concentration mostly is based within the urban cities. Now, forgetting that we have the rural areas. So what the government of Ghana did was to actually lay the fiber infrastructure across the whole country, connecting all government agencies and then inviting the government business to come on board. So we have been able to achieve that successfully. Now the business areas, the business sector, the telcos are now willing to extend internet, broadband, and all the services to the rural communities. So I think infrastructure is very important. With infrastructure, you can also we also solve the employment issues. We also solve the inequality issues and all that. So we need infrastructure as well.
Thank you. According to the list that was established by Marilyn, we turn to the other speakers. Please, go ahead. Yeah, you have the floor, please. Go ahead.
Hello, Helga Mühling from Austria. I would like to underline that we could offer a best practice example. My country has established a multi-stakeholder mechanism where we are discussing publicly what we are accomplishing, what we do plan and envisage to make sustainable development come a reality. And all the information is public on the internet, and I would be happy to discuss with you afterwards or in between a break, so I could help to assist you, for example, to provide a similar mechanism in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we going to technical community? Thank you.
Buenos días. Soy presidenta de una joven organización de la sociedad civil en Cuba, la Unión de Informáticos de Cuba, de profesionales del sector de las tecnologías de la información y las comunicaciones. Tenemos otras dos oportunidades en el foro de hablar, pero queríamos dejar dos posiciones que hemos estado defendiendo y hemos estado actuando desde la organización, que tiene 7 meses de creada, para cumplir con la Agenda 2030 con la persona en el centro, centrada en la persona, como se ha estado hablando aquí. Primeramente, la posición de que efectivamente la sociedad de la información sigue siendo un concepto excluyente en muchas partes del mundo y muchos de los habitantes del planeta continúan marginados de los avances tecnológicos. Este impacto beneficioso indiscutiblemente de las tecnologías es significativamente menor para los países en vías de desarrollo. Es muy importante entonces no solo hablar, sino también trabajar de conjunto para lograr el acceso a las redes, permitiendo un uso adecuado, educativo, ético, objetivo y veraz, asegurando el suministro y consumo de productos culturales amplios y diversos que reflejen nuestra diversidad cultural. Hoy sigue siendo un imperativo eliminar los obstáculos que enfrentan los países en desarrollo para acceder a estas nuevas tecnologías. Por eso es importante discutir y actuar sobre los temas de transferencia tecnológica. Para esto es muy importante la cooperación internacional y es uno de los temas en los que desde nuestra organización estamos trabajando. En segundo lugar, nosotros queríamos reafirmar también desde nuestra organización de la sociedad civil el párrafo 48 de la Declaración de Principios de Ginebra, en el que habla de que la gestión internacional de Internet debe ser multilateral, transparente y democrática, y contar con la plena participación de los gobiernos, el sector privado, la sociedad civil y las organizaciones internacionales. En esta gestión se debe garantizar la distribución equitativa de los recursos, facilitar el acceso de todos, garantizar un funcionamiento estable y seguro de Internet y tener en cuenta el multilingüismo. En esto también podemos apoyar, y es lo que hemos estado haciendo también en nuestra organización, creando grupos y redes que propongan buenas prácticas y políticas. Muchas gracias.
Yes,
Thank you. I'm Patrick Ho, come from China. I would like to speak on behalf of the users of the Internet, because the users represent the largest partnership group for the SDG 17, probably for now and for the future. The ICT ushered us into the virtual space technology. In the physical space, we have regulations and social mores, but in the virtual space, we're still exploring of the different ways that we can govern it. So there's very little consensus in the virtual space. Instead, there are a multitude of views of how the Internet should be governed, reflecting our world's great diversity of culture, tradition, religion, and moralities. Views on topics such as sex, gambling, religious jokes, ethnic slurs, and language choices vary greatly from location to location. Thus far, national governments have generally worked to represent their user base, but a large part of Internet governance remains in the hands of private companies and other non-state actors who are the stakeholders because they control some of the very critical parts of the Internet's infrastructures. But everyday users, in the meantime, are left at best with very vague notions of how the Internet is regulated and governed. The use of the Internet is largely superficial, typing a few words, points, and clicks, rather than of routines and servers and protocols and data streamings. This lack of transparency has left Internet users with little choice and even less say, unaware of serious stakes at play over issues such as privacy, security, and freedom of speech. The engagement, education, and empowerment of users should be a fundamental objective of the IGF, especially national and regional IGFs. We must strive to implement a more democratic governance and secure a more prominent role for everyday users and the non-users who will become tomorrow's users. Thank you.
I think we are finished with that. We want to thank everyone for their comments and their interventions. And this time we're going to be handing it over to David, who will do the amazing job of summarizing all of that for us. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll try. I can't cover everything, but I'll try to cover many of the issues that were raised. I won't recap the opening discussions, but focus on what was said in the open sessions. But I'll begin with just a recapitulation of the purpose of the session. The aim of the session was to assess the role of Internet governance in the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is, of course, broader. And I think one of the questions that raised, which was evident in the discussion, was whether we were talking about Internet governance or whether we were talking about the Internet in relation to sustainable development. On the whole, I'd say that the discussion brought together two very complex issues which have long histories and which have not always been linked closely together in the minds of the participants in either. It's an important task to bring them together in order to maximise success in both, to enable the ICT sector, the Internet, to make its maximum contribution to sustainable development, but also actually to build sustainable development within the way we move forward as an information society. Peter Major reminded us that the core theme of the World Summit was, in fact, this integration between the information society and the development agenda. And that also came up in the introductory comments from the Assistant Secretary General of DESA, who talked about the state of play, the challenges that are faced in the UN systems and amongst its partners in achieving the SDGs, ensuring that no one's left behind. So, a lot of discussion on two areas around ICTs in particular: achieving universal access as a part of achieving the SDGs as a whole, not just as the specific SDG target 9C, which refers to it. And secondly, integrating digital technology into the implementation of development, the integration word being really important there. Also reiterated by a number of speakers was the notion that ICT is a tool, not an end. That, of course, is referenced directly in the WSIS Geneva Declaration. And the corollary of that is that human beings are at the core of development. So the development challenges we face are very considerable, but at the heart of them are people. A people-centered, inclusive and development-oriented information society, again, is the starting phrase of the World Summit Geneva Declaration. So the development challenges are very considerable. They include a very wide range of things in those 17 SDGs. One other point I'd make about this, I think that was emphasised by one speaker, was context. One speaker, perhaps several speakers, was context. That if we are looking at development challenges, we need to look at them in the terms of the individual countries and not just see one kind of large mass of development, either a mass of developing countries or a set of particular issues. But we need to look at the specifics of the particular country concerned and the particular sector in that country. So turning to specific issues, actually not much was said about individual SDGs. Most of the discussion took a cross-cutting view of the role of ICTs in development, and I think there's a justification for that which was raised, which is that it's that cross-cutting approach that maximizes the value that can be leveraged. However, I would refer to some speakers referencing in particular the SDGs on poverty and equality, and also on health, and perhaps also on e-commerce as it can be used by small producers. In terms of a thematic approach or a more thematic approach, there was discussion from a number of people about access to information, access to knowledge, and the development of understanding which will enable people to make better decisions in their own interests. And at the same time, there was discussion of the challenges. So challenges were raised. The Internet can pose problems as well as opportunities, particularly their discussion of the marginalization of labour and the implications for employment of fewer jobs, casualisation, and so forth. The important question raised by one contributor, I think, of the employment perspective of sustainability, which is certainly one that I think deserves a lot more thinking about. So ways forward, finally. So obviously access is of fundamental importance. There was a lot of discussion of that in terms of connectivity, including references to marginalised areas and to broadband. There was also reference to other dimensions of access which are now routinely considered alongside connectivity, so affordability and content, including local content. There was less reference until very near the end to capabilities, which I thought was interesting, because if this were a development community forum, there would be much, much more emphasis on the capabilities and skills of people to make use of the internet. There was also reference to the need for skills and capabilities related to the stability and security of the internet itself. So different aspects to access that were discussed. I mentioned infrastructure, the enabling environment for investment and innovation. Other things that I think were talked about a fair bit, making the most use of resources that the digital age enables, innovation in general, more narrowly open data and open government. There was discussion by quite a few people of the need to develop ways of measuring progress on the SDGs as such, on the impact of ICTs, not quite the same thing. And indeed for continuous monitoring, the scale of the SDG challenge for national statistical systems is very great. And also the need to share research and evidence more widely. Not surprisingly, in an IGF, people refer to the multi-stakeholder approach, the value of which lies in enabling the better development of consensus and the development of better decisions. But also, I think within that, at least one speaker referred to the importance of supporting governments in their roles. And another aspect of this would be dialogue with the development community. So I raised that myself, so a bit Jerry is saying so again, but a number of other people also raised this importance of having a dialogue with the development community, that our multi-stakeholder approach must involve that reaching out to and listening to those who have expertise in those other areas. A healthy reminder at the end of the importance of the user and the role of the IGF in enhancing awareness and understanding of internet governance. So three, I think, final future work for the IGF. Having people from the development community as a panel here, well, I suggested that, so maybe I shouldn't suggest it again, but it was also raised from the floor. References to intersectional work and best practice fora in the particular context of this. The role of national IGFs in responding to the sustainable development goals. So I think those are a few things that the MAG could consider.
Thank you. I'd like to also offer some final remarks. And after having listened to all those who took the floor and also to our rapporteur, I am totally convinced of the importance of the conversation we have just had on the synergies and the possible links between internet governance and sustainable development goals. However, my take on this is that since I anticipate this will be a permanent feature in IGF meetings in between now and in the horizon of the implementation of SDGs, I think it would be very important in future occasions to shape the discussions in a way that will allow us to have a conversation that will lead to some kind of, if I can use the word, tangible output, which is the language that was used by the working group on the IGF improvements, that made a very specific recommendation that the IGF's meeting should seek to produce some tangible output that could be fed into other processes. And I think this is exactly what we need, because as David Salter was stating at the beginning, it's very important that those who are involved with the SDGs agenda, with the implementation of SDGs, they are made aware of the contribution that the IGF can make through truly multi-stakeholder discussion and investigation on so many aspects related to internet governance that can have an impact on what they are doing there. So I think it's very important that in future occasions, and I'd like to congratulate Marilyn Cade, Igor for the idea of having that, I think, seminal conversation, but it's important that in future occasions we shape our meetings in a way that we can produce some very concrete, or at least some ideas and recommendations and proposals for those who will be implemented. And those will be actually the countries that are represented here through the main stakeholders. So as one of the contributors have mentioned, that we should make sure that all the countries are also involved in this effort. In a way, they are through different mechanisms, through different participation. So I think it's mostly our task to make sure that we make that bridge between what we discuss here, between what are the conclusions and the richness of the debate we have here as a very concrete contribution to implementation of SDGs. I think the call for this has already been made in last year and by the adoption of the SDGs, and this year when the high-level panel made a specific call for the contribution coming from the science and technology sector, and certainly one very particular subsector would be related to ICTs and internet. I'm totally convinced of the value of the discussions that we hold in this forum can bring to the overall discussion on the SDGs. So with these words, I'd like to say I'm very glad with the discussion we have had and look forward to future developments with, if I can say, a more action-oriented or more focused approach that will enable us to reach that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to echo the ambassador's comments, and really a big thank you to David for an excellent summary. There was a lot of good information shared, good contribution to the open consultation process that we will take forward. I just want to sort of go back to some of the discussion that we had just for a very brief moment here. You know, when we look at the improving the human condition through SDGs enabled by ICTs, and we did hear some of this come through some of our speakers on the setting the stage, if you will, session, as well as through many of the interventions that we heard. We must not overlook the ethical development and use of ICTs, especially in the era of such rapid technological growth and such unimaginable data capture. So I think it's sort of a common underrunning theme that we do hear in many of the topics and the challenges that we're addressing, but just to sort of add that into part of our conversations moving forward. Thank you. I'm losing track of my schedule here. So at this point, we'd like to move to our closing comment by our host country chair. Victor, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Y muchas gracias a todos ustedes por su participación tan activa. Siempre es un privilegio escuchar diferentes voces, diferentes opiniones. Nuestra posición realmente es una de fortalecer la conversación. Vemos muchos puntos de concordancia y muchos puntos de debate, lo cual nos demuestra que este foro cumple con el objetivo que se plantea. Sabemos todos nosotros desde nuestra trinchera, desde nuestro país o desde nuestro puesto, nuestra responsabilidad actual, las diferencias que vemos hacia enfrente, diferencias sociales, diferencias económicas, diferencias de género en línea y demás. Lo importante es reconocerlas y ver cómo podemos trabajar en conjunto para desarrollar y para realmente apoyar los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Un punto que quisiera compartir también es, al impulsar estos objetivos, tenemos que ser muy cuidadosos también de controlar muy bien que el Internet no sea una plataforma también de desarrollo de potenciales vulnerabilidades hacia la sociedad. Estamos viendo cómo crecientes temas de ciberseguridad, de seguridad de la información, están también siendo explotados por esta plataforma. Entonces, veo mucho énfasis también en desarrollo económico, social, pero también quisiera quisiera ponerles enfrente el tema de cómo podemos trabajar en conjunto y frenar y controlar un poco el potencial del daño social que causa esto. Reconozco y quiero subrayar la participación de una compatriota mexicana que comparte las mismas preocupaciones, igual y con un lenguaje no tan técnico como muchos de ustedes lo tienen, mucho académico, sector técnico, gobierno, industria, que representan realmente una opinión muy desarrollada, muy estudiada, basada en ya muchos reportes con los que contamos, pero finalmente el objetivo es el mismo, la preocupación es la misma, es tener y potenciar esta herramienta, esta plataforma para desarrollo de la comunidad, desarrollo económico y social. Y dentro de esto, impulsar los objetivos de desarrollo. Con esto realmente les agradezco su tiempo de nuevo y les deseo mucho trabajo, mucho debate y realmente mucho aprendizaje en las sesiones que vienen este día y los siguientes días. Muchas gracias.